teachers of Reddit, what is the most shocking thing you've seen going on in your classrooms? In my classroom we keep a television screen which can be connected to wirelessly. One day I was setting up a DVD about WW2, and it came up in the top right. Billy's iPhone connected. It then proceeded to play the Paris Hilton sex tape. The kid was utterly shocked and later admitted it was a mistake. He was watching it in the back of the room, and somehow connected it to the TV. Kid stuck a craft pipe cleaner in an electrical socket. Cue a flash, a yelp, and blue fuzz everywhere. Socket and cover were both burned black, and didn't get replaced for 3 years. Student was an 8th grader. I thought it was a myth. I knew a kid who put a paper clip in an electrical socket and thought wrapping it in paper would protect him from the shock. In grade Fine 10, idiot had to go to the hospital because it screwed up his heartbeat. I went to a small music school where basically everyone smoked weed all day. One day during midterm review our audio professor yelled at the whole class for being high for about 20 minutes. Nobody knew what to do. There was a strange craze of shting in the books and leaving them back in the library. Somehow no one was ever caught. Nobody was caught? That's strange. This seems like a textbook case of the perpetrators leaving a shitload of evidence. One day, our teacher didn't show up to class and neither did her substitute. Some kid gave a 50-minute lecture on pimpology during that time. I've worked with kids for almost 10 years, but nothing prepared me for this year of teaching. I teach preschool and this year I got a student who had been our ed. 3-year-old sweet, smart, intelligent girl, dealing with abandonment and RE issues. I've dealt with a lot of sad stories and family situations, but this breaks my heart. To be clear, no, I was not a teacher in 6th grade. Alright, I've got 3 stories for you guys. 1. This was 5th grade. There was a mentally challenged girl in my class. I completely forgot her name so we'll call her Jim. It was a normal day in math class. Jim was sitting down doing some work when suddenly she gets up, takes her shirt off and runs around class topless. This was the first time I saw undeveloped female boobs. It was an awkward experience for all of us. Many confused boners. The teacher couldn't stop her, so the principal had to be called to remove the stripper. 2. It was show and tell. Yes, my effing favorite day ever. Jim brought in a show box. Show and tell was going by smoothly up to Jim's turn. She walked up to the front of the class, took the lid off of the box and cockroaches flooded out of the box. The whole class went into full panic mode and ran out of the room. Exterminators were called. We had a longer than average recess. 3. Now we're in 6th grade. There's a girl whose name I can't recall. We'll call her Bill. This was when our school got those new fancy smartboards. So we're watching our teacher teach us some when suddenly Bill projectile vomited all over the kid in front of her, which caused said kid to vomit all over himself. The room was filled with stank. We all got evacuated and again had an extended recess while Consuela cleaned the room. There may be some more locked in my thinking organ. If they surface I'll be sure to. Back when I was in school we had 3 of the 6 ambulance teams in the whole county called to out school because one sunny day someone passed the fad around that kids should hyperventilate and have someone push on their chests until they passed out. If I remember some 14 students had to be checked out and 1 taken to hospital. A very large, peculiar boy by the name of Thomas was caught masturbating by sticking his dick into the pages of his book and thrusting, might I mention. Typical Tom as he was referred to, was a junior in high school. I guess he was doing his effing homework. My school tried to do an experiment and tried to put all the male below average grade students and delinquents into one English class taught by a female teacher. Did not go well for her. When she stepped out to use the bathroom we emptied all the bookshelf and her desk and threw them out the window. Kids hid behind the blinds of the windows and slept. One kid missed his bus sleeping through 2 other periods. We made a dominoes of books. She actually joined us for this. Another time when she stepped out we stood books up and threw knives and scissors at them to see if it would stick in. Learned how to throw knives that day. We were on a 2nd floor that partially looked onto the roof of the 1st floor. Kids would often just leave enter in through windows. Not sure why. Our school hall pass was just a red laminated that had hall pass crudely written on it. We broke open a locked drawer to find a lamination machine and made everyone hall passes. But the weirdest of all, we all passed and actually did fairly well in her class. I actually took a copy of the day No Pigs Would Die home because I liked it so much. Once, while I was teaching an 11th grade math class, I had a rowdy student. He was really fidgety and talked loudly to his friends, ignoring me. I told him to stop. He did for 10 minutes. He started again and I told him he'd get detention if started again. He stopped, and near the end of the period, he started ignoring me and being as obnoxious as can be. I told him to get out of my class as he was too much of a distraction. He left and just 2 minutes later was outside the door, got on a chair, and took his pants off and pressed his A against the window, and the next thing I know, the window was covered in sh. I was in disbelief and the other students just froze. The principal came in, and after getting that kid out of my class and getting the situation under control, he yells at me and says, "What the hell? You should have used a serious tag." Not from my time as a teacher, but still relevant. I'm sure I've posted this elsewhere before, but here goes. Way back when I was a youth, there was a guy in science class. Let's call him Dan. Now Dan was one of those kids who for one reason or another failed at all challenges involving common sense. He also liked to crush up chalk and snort it during science class. About the only thing Dan was good for was soccer. He played in the school team and was regarded as our best striker. Anyway, Dan's stupidity came to a head one day during an experiment set up by one of our chemistry teachers. She had a large container of chlorine gas she'd procured prior to the lesson at the front of the class. She explained what she was going to do, what the gas was, and ended her explanation with a stern "Do not breathe this in." Then, she got distracted by something and had to leave the room for a moment. She was gone no more than a second when Dan stood, dashed to the front of the class, opened the container, and took a long, deep, hearty snort of chlorine gas. The airborne ambulance made remarkably good time getting to the school and somehow saved Dan's life. But it was a while before he came back to school, and he was a changed kid. He couldn't play football anymore, his lungs were permanently damaged, and running even short distances left him gasping for air. Not sure what became of Dan, but he taught me a valuable lesson about chlorine gas. Apparently it was used as a weapon during World War I. I can see why. My dad is a teacher and this is his favorite story. As a PhD student, he was teaching American history at a small high school. As he was lecturing, he noticed an odd smell and an enormous football player walking toward him from the back of the class. The football player hands my dad a note which says, "I have just sh myself." Not a word is said. My dad simply nods to the student and the student walks quietly out of the room to handle the matter. My dad, kept the note for 20 years and would occasionally ponder the grammar of shting oneself, instead of just shting oneself without the extra sh. Not necessarily in my classroom, but happening to students who are members of my classroom. I have 2 students who have been sexually molested this school year. I've dealt with social services and law enforcement as a result. This has rattled me to the core. It's been one of the most challenging years of my career. I never bring my work home, but this year it's been impossible not to think about these things after hours. You see those faces every day smiling back at you, but you have no idea what they are actually experiencing outside of the school walls. It's devastating. Posted this before, but must answer again. I'm a high school teacher in American Samoa, Rus territory. Tattooing is a huge cultural thing. A student I know, P, comes to me before school and asks if he can hang out in my room at lunch. Sure thing, I tell him. It's pretty common for kids to grab their lunch and hang out in it at his room. Come lunchtime, L comes to my room and asks if P has shown up. They are supposed to meet in my room at lunch. He hasn't shown up, so she sits and waits for him. Soon after, P comes in, carrying his backpack and lunch. I'm sitting at my desk, eating my lunch. Suddenly, I hear a buzzing sound. As soon as I hear the sound, I recognize it. I turn my head. Elle is sitting at a desk with one of her sleeves rolled all the way up. P is holding a tattoo gun in his hand a mere inch away from Elle's arm. "What are you two doing?" "P does tattoos, miss. He's gonna do something for me on my arm." "You can't get a tat in my classroom." L. P. Put away your equipment. "You can't give a tat in my room or at school for that matter." TL. DR. Student tried to give another student a tattoo in my classroom. I was kind of a crazy kid in middle school. Well, I had this one friend. Let's call him Eric. The both of us were inseparable. Well, one day during study hall we were both goofing off and had to be separated. So they put Eric in the quiet room. At the time I thought it would be a neat idea to crawl through this event type thingy that was in the wall at knee level, which led into the quiet room, right by Eric's feet. I quickly knocked out the other end and grabbed Eric by the feet, which made him scream. This of course got the attention of the teacher, who quickly ran over and grabbed my legs trying to pull me out of the event. Well, I didn't want to go peacefully, so I kept holding on to Eric's feet while the teacher kept pulling on my legs. It turned into a tug of war between my teacher and I, which I eventually won by crawling through the other end into the quiet room. I'm surprised I turned out normal. I can't claim credit for this story, but it's a goodie that allegedly happened in my buddy's 4th or 5th grade class. So, this 4th grader that will henceforth be known as Conrad apparently went on a family trip to China and came back with a pencil decorated with an intricate dragon design that he absolutely adored. Like during class he would take it out of his pencil bag and put it on his desk just to look at and admire, but never used or even sharpened it. One day, when Conrad left the room to use the bathroom or something, the kid sitting on his right, Jim, picked up the dragon pencil, stuck it in a pencil sharpener, and ground that beautiful work of art until it was just an eraser with a stub, with a tiny amount of the dragon design still visible. When Conrad comes back into the room he seats himself and looks forward, noticing what's become of his most prized possession, and doesn't say a word. He then grabs the sharpened pencil that he'd been using to write, screams, and stabs it through the hand of the kid sitting on his left, Bill, incorrectly assuming he was the culprit. Needless to say, Conrad didn't come back to class the next day, or ever again. Not sure what's good with Bill's hand.